over here. Thank you for letting us know. Morning, everybody. Happy Wednesday. Virtual meeting today, or mixed, hybrid. Troy, good to see you. Let's start. Where is perfect? Holly, right. So this is broadcast on Zoom and being recorded for those who missed the meeting afterwards. Holly, take over the screen.
Yeah, failure is only the opportunity to begin again, this time a little more intelligently. Henry Ford.
And after digesting that, what is the message?
Yeah, well, I think that, seeing the word failure is really interesting to me, but I think having the opportunity when we overcome and see those obstacles, it's really that good push to start fresh. And really, we're coming to that opportunity knowing a little bit more than we did before. So it doesn't necessarily mean that we're going to get the same result.
Exactly, yeah, especially in our industry, on a daily basis, weekly basis, monthly basis. Every year is a different year. Every day is a different day. So always look at, you should look at things in a different perspective, right? Look at things as an opportunity to grow and be a better person at the end of that experience versus get discouraged. Thanks for sharing, Holly. Shout outs to recent cappers throughout our offices, Calabasas. I don't see Stephanie. Mr. Rosenberg is in the house.
Alan! He's here. And congratulations on capping, Alan. You're the best.
Congrats, Rosenberg. I see him often at the.
Be here back there. Say yay.
Awesome. Congratulations.
Alan, come here.
I see him often. I see him often early morning at the gym over there as well. So keep it up and keep pushing.
Alan right here. Alan Rosenberg. And then congratulations, Jasmine. Absolutely love you. You've been knocking it out of the park. So congratulations on hitting your 100%.
Congrats, Jasmine and team. Well done. I love seeing you on social media as well. Keep up the good work. Good job. Jordan.
Woohoo! Jordan Davies, our world traveler and just traveler extraordinaire and kicking it out of the park with his business as well. So Jordan, congratulations. Got that 100% again.
Congrats, Jordan. Well done, everybody. Keep it up. And Long Beach, Leroy.
Yeah, absolutely. I'm so excited to see this name on here. Congrats, Leroy Brown. Leroy is our PCM here in the office. So also on the ALC. So he's managing all that as well as a very strong business this year. So congrats, Leroy, for all your hard work. And thank you for everything that you do for our Market Center. We appreciate you.
Congrats, Leroy. And usually you'll see him at the office. We're doing more of a Zoom session today. I know he's on the call. Leroy, class act and amazing mentor, ALC member. Keep it up. Also overseeing the mentor program together with Holly. Congrats. Shout outs to our producers, top producers for the month of July. All the closing out of the Westside office. Congrats, guys, everybody. Well done. Another strong month here in the Westside office. Both resident, commercial, coastal, Long Beach. Congratulations.
Yeah, very strong this month. Yeah, congrats to everybody on this list. You guys are doubling down on your business. You're gearing up. Congrats on getting creative, having great perseverance right now. I know it isn't easy, but it's going to really come out the other side.
Well done, Long Beach team. And the Calabasas team. Congratulations, everybody.
There we go. There we go. Just waiting for it to get over here. Yay! Yeah, everyone just continues to contribute and just working tirelessly, right? Just around, just knowing and taking advantage of the full opportunity. So congratulations to all of you.
Well done, Calabasas, and they still think it's bold session, so they're going for the screams and the shout outs and everything. Yeah, go team. Well done. Welcome to our offices, to our KW families. Join us recently over here, West Side, Melinda, Jason, Nick, and Bobby. Welcome to the office. Welcome to the team. Calabasas.
Will Davis, Lanja, Hamid, Levette, Veronica, Erica, Maor, right there, Riley, right here. Congratulations, and they're ready to go down pavement and make those deals.
Welcome, and the Long Beach team.
Woo! Yeah. It's just me, but I'm excited. Congratulations, you guys, for deciding to partner in business with us. Congrats, Haley. Welcome, Ivan, Dennis, and Karen. We're very excited to help you grow your businesses and hopefully see your name on the capper list.
Welcome. Now we have Holly and Haley. Thank you, Holly, for making it more complicated.
There's only one L difference too in the spelling. So we actually have the same middle name as well, which makes it even harder.
Awesome. Well, welcome everybody. Thanks for being part of our group. Good to have you. Shout outs to happy belated birthday, Stephanie Alatorre. She's still celebrating. Happy birthday. As of recently. Happy birthday. Love the balloons.
Thank you.
And happy birthday to out of the coastal office to both Elaine and Sarah. Happy birthday, ladies. Happy birthday. Always fun to celebrate our amazing leadership teams. And up next, our attorney, Jeff Kahn. Let's see what he has for us. Jeff.
Hey, Minnie. Hey, Rich. Hey, everybody. Hey, Hallie. How you doing? Looks like we've got 4 offices in one today, huh?
We have today 3.
That means I get to charge you 4 times as much.
Go for it.
Yeah. I'm going to work out the math on 4 times 0 and see what I come up with. So I'm going to try to share my screen, if that's okay with you.
Yeah, let me know if you
See how that works.
Let's see. Okay, yeah, I can see your screen.
Okay, can you see these forms?
With pleasure. Property.
Well, I'm scrolling up. Don't get dizzy. Hold on. Okay, you can see the transfer of listing?
Hold our breath for a second. Yes, sir. Go for it. All yours.
Perfect. So what I'm going to cover today in the next 20 or 30 minutes, I think that's the time I've got, is I'm going to go over some new forms that came out from CAR. I'm going to tell you a little bit about the residential purchase agreement that's coming out in December. I did the first class for Southland Regional yesterday. It was about 3.5 hours, the class. So, with regard to, I'm doing another class on August 25th at SRAR. You can sign up for that. But we're trying to arrange a class for Keller Williams, but for Minnie and Rich, I don't really want to teach this class to each individual office. This is like a 4-hour class. So I've contacted a couple of the managers, and I'm asking you now to contact regional or whatever and see if we can set up like 1 or 2 large meetings with a bunch of the offices rather than doing them individually, because I think I'd have to shoot myself if I had to do this like 15 times. So if we can get like, a whole bunch of the, Paul Morris offices together, I can do the class once or twice. And I can do those, in September, October, whatever, closer to the time. But in the meantime, if you want to get a head start on it, August 25th, I am teaching it at SRAR, and you can sign up for that class. So I'm going to start off today just with covering a couple of new forms that came out recently that you may or may not be aware of. And the first one is the transfer of listing agreement. First of all, Rich, everybody, can you hear me okay?
Yes.
Okay, I just got a brand new computer Saturday, a new iMac, so I want to make sure that it's working okay. So I think you can hear and see me okay?
I love your background, Jeff, the kitty, very cute.
Oh, you can see the kitties in the background?
Very cute.
Yeah, those are three of we have 4 kitties, but you got 3 of them back there. So the first form is a transfer of listing agreement. And this form was designed, there was a fair amount of requests for this form. This form was kind of designed for the situation where an agent leaves one office with listings and goes to another one, whether the listing is in escrow or not. And this form can be used to transfer that listing from the old office to the new office. So the way it sets up, the top part's easy, but then paragraph 1 talks about the fact that the principal, meaning the seller, and the broker agree by signing below, the listings being assigned to the new broker, and it has a place for the old broker, the new broker, and the principal to all sign. And it talks about under paragraph 2, the question is going to be if an agent leaves one office and goes to another, is the principal going to pay the initial broker anything for that? If so, there's a place in 2A. Or is the new broker going to pay a referral fee to the old broker? So there's a place in 2B for that. And there's also a place if the new broker owes no compensation to the broker. And then you've got the standard stuff like agency, escrow, and all that. But if you go down to paragraph 7, you'll see it says the listing was obtained through blank. That's the agent. The agent is either no longer affiliated with the broker, or as of such and such a date will no longer be affiliated, or the agent is or will or not be affiliated with the new broker. So it could be used if the agent has left, or it could just be used if the listing is being transferred from one office to another, even if there's no change of an agent leaving the office. So there'll be times when then the listing might just be moved from one broker to another under some agreement, and it's not because the agent is leaving, it's just because that's what happens, and that's this form is set up for that as well. And then paragraph 8 talks about the transaction file being transferred from one office to the other, and then there's a release of liability for the initial broker from the principal and the new broker if that's what's happening. So this form was designed so you don't have to come up with your own form for those situations, and there's a place for the principal to sign, and there's a place for the brokers to sign. If the property is already in escrow, you can still do it, but then you're going to need to do a new agency confirmation form, showing that the new agent, new brokerage is who it is, and the old brokerage is no longer the broker of record. So that's the first new form that's come out. And if there's any questions, by the way, Manny, Rich, or Haley, if you see any questions, is it Haley or Hallie? I'm sorry. Hallie, right?
Yeah, just keep going. The only thing, if you don't mind, on the top left of the PDF, if you click on the red button over there to expand the entire window of the PDF, so you're gonna see only that on the top left over there of the gray, yeah, on the green one, yeah, perfect.
Is that better?
Yeah.
I can still zoom in on it, so there.
That's fine. Yeah, perfect.
Oh, okay. All right. Any questions on that form? Not sure what happened there. Okay, the next one is, I see it's putting up 2 forms at once. The next form is the Fire Hardening and Defensible Space Advisory and Disclosure Form. This form came out also in June, the new version, and this is pretty complicated, but basically there's 2 new laws. One is for fire hardening, one is for defensible space. If the property is in a high or very high fire severity zone, and if the seller is not exempt from giving a TDS or statutory disclosures, and for the fire hardening part, if the property was built before January 1st, 2010, then the seller has to disclose to the buyer whether the property has certain things in paragraph 3B below. So the rule for the fire hardening is that it has to be used for very high fire severity zone. If the seller is not exempt, if the property is before 2010. For the defensible space portion of it, the 2010 doesn't apply. So if the property is in a very high fire severity zone, and the seller is not exempt, they have to do the defensible space portion. So on the fire hardening part, the seller just has to fill out section 3B, which states whether the seller is aware if the property has any of these items which could cause issues with fires. So again, to find out whether a property is in a very high severity zone, the best way to do it is to get the natural hazard disclosure report up front, look at that, and that should be able to determine whether the property is in one of those zones or not. If the property is not in a high or very high fire severity zone, you don't have to use this form at all. You can use it as a advisory if you want to. That's kind of up to the brokerage, but it is required when the property is in those zones unless the seller is exempt. On the defensible space portion, that's a little more confusing. On the defensible space portion, there's a state law now that says that if a seller has a report from either CAL FIRE or the fire department talking about whether there's any debris or anything within 100 feet of the property, or whether the property has been cleared, is in compliance, if the seller has a report that was issued within the last 6 months, then they have to give a copy of that report to the buyer. If the seller doesn't have a report, under the state law, they're not required to go out and get one, but the buyer is required within 1 year of the close of escrow to get the property in compliance and to get a report from either CAL FIRE or the fire department or whoever's handling it locally. So that's the state law, but some of the areas also have local laws, although I don't think that the areas that you guys are in necessarily have local laws. I know there's one for Truckee and some other areas. So if you have a local law, it may change that. Some of the local laws require the seller to actually get a report now as a condition of closing escrow. But for the most part, I think in the areas you're in, you're just going to be going by the state law. And so it's fairly straightforward, the state law. Again, if the seller has a report, they've got to disclose it in writing. They have to give it to this buyer within during the escrow. They don't have to go out and get a report, but the buyer's obligated to get a report within 1 year. So if you look at paragraph 4, paragraph 4A and B, if you look at B1 and 2, B1 talks about the buyer obtaining documentation compliance if there's no local ordinance, and then B2 talks about the buyer getting the obligation to get the compliance if there is a local ordinance. And then actually there's a page 2 to this, which is B3 and 4. But there's four possibilities. Under the state law, the first possibility, again, is that the seller has a report already and has to give it. The second option is they don't, and the buyer has to comply within a year. And then the third and fourth possibility is that there's a local ordinance, which is different. If the local ordinance says you have to do it as a condition of closing, or the buyer has to do it within 6 months, then you have to comply with the local ordinance. So this is the form that you would use. It's getting a lot of questions, a lot of feedback, a lot of controversy over this because the legislature passed this and it's just very confusing. There is a 4 or 5 page Q&A at car.org that I recommend that you all read, and you can give it out to your seller clients, which goes through a lot of the questions regarding fire hardening and defensible space. You can find it at www.car.org. That goes through like I said, a whole bunch of questions and answers on that. One of the questions that comes up is if you're representing a buyer and the seller hasn't been in compliance, so the buyer has to do it within a year, should you be telling the buyer, gee, maybe you should get that inspection if you can now during escrow, because if you wait a year, there might be a big surprise for you at the end of the year if it costs a whole bunch of money to get in compliance. So it does make sense if you're representing a buyer and the property is in a high or very high fire severity zone, to advise them to maybe get that report if they can during the escrow. This advisory and this disclosure talks about that. So if the buyer is signing off, they're deemed to have read it and understand they have to comply within a year, but it might be a good idea to investigate that as well to see if there's going to be a large expense down the road at some point. So with that, I'm going to see if there's any questions regarding this particular form. Any questions from anybody?
One question on the chat. So go ahead, Rich.
I was going to say, Jeff, I'm glad you brought up about, if you're working with a buyer, that, make sure that you're informing them that, if you aren't compliant and you find out within this year what you have to do, there may be some expense. That's, you really have to talk to them about. And basically for us, we feel that we're going to be governed by, because the local ordinance, as you said, are like trucky. So we're governed by the state, which would mean if the seller has the report, they have to supply it. And if not, then the buyer within a year will have to get that report. Is that not correct? I just want to confirm that so
That
that
is correct.
everybody. Okay.
That is absolutely correct. And my feeling is, on this, my feeling is that it would be a good idea, assuming the property is in a very, very high fire severity zone, and you're getting this report from the seller, if you're the buyer's agent, my feeling is that when you deliver this report to the buyer, it would be a good idea to have an email to the buyer saying, here's the report. You're going to have to comply. As you can see, you're going to have to comply with this within a year. You may want to have this investigation, if there's anybody to investigate it at this point. You may want to have this investigated during your escrow contingency period to see what the cost factor may be up the road. Now, there's
Right,
one other.
May I make a suggestion?
Yes, go ahead.
I represent the Natural Hazard Disclosure Report from INHD.
Oh,
And
okay,
we
great.
Just recently, last week, put into all of our NHD reports a link so that the buyer can click on it and set up an actual interview with CAL FIRE, or it's a
Wow.
local fire department if they're in the local jurisdiction of very high fire. And that way they'll know what do they need to do on their home to be in compliance with AB 38. And they have that whole year to bring it up to that level. But my NHD is already being proactive to not only change on our report starting today, actually. We have 3 different levels to show you high fire, very high fire, and very high fire severity zone on our report, which is using state, county, and city local maps. And then this link to CAL FIRE is so the buyer doesn't have to be all worried and wigged out. What do they have to do? They set up this appointment, they come out, they assess the environment of their particular home, and then they give them a specific date of when it has to be finished and come back. And they do have that whole year from the day they close escrow.
Thank you,
So
Mindy.
we're here to help keep everybody safe.
That's great. So that's a great feature. So what I'm thinking is that somehow the agent needs to red flag that for the buyer, so the buyer is aware that the link's there, because the buyers don't look at stuff. So I think it's important that the agent point that out. Maybe you can come up with something in the office where you got a standard email that you're sending out saying, by the way, there's a link in this report that you can go to set up an appointment, because that would be a great way of handling it.
Yeah, it's in every single report that has the AB 38 flag come up.
Right.
So-
That's a great.
And it's
That's a
in
great.
red also. It's just people have to read.
Yeah. It's in red for fire, right?
Yeah.
Very good. Okay, that sounds good. Any other questions on this? Okay, I'm going to move along. I'm going to skip the one on the right because the one on the right has to do with disclosing the buyer's agent compensation to the buyer. You may be aware that there was a settlement entered into between the Department of Justice and the NAR a while back, where one of the elements of the main element was that the buyer's agent was going to have to disclose to the buyer the commission that they're getting paid. But that settlement has basically fallen apart, and we don't have any guidance at all right now. CAR has no guidance, but it's pretty clear that at some point in time that the buyer's agent is going to have to disclose to the buyer the commission that's being paid on the transaction. So I think a number of the MLSs have already put that information in the public MLS part, not just the agent part, but in the public part now, it also has the commission. So you could provide that to the buyer, and that would be your way of providing that information to the buyer. But right now, there's no CAR form on it because it's just completely in limbo. So I'm going to switch to the next page here. And on the next page, we have the residential listing agreement. And that form is not new, but there's a change in the form. And I'm just going to go ahead and look and point you to the changes. The first change you can see.
If I can interrupt, but even though that the DOJ has withdrawn their settlement agreement, I was a party to a conversation from June Barlow at CAR Legal that it's still recommended that agents adopt this policy to disclose that information, because at the very least, when this agreement comes back, those points, there's those 4 points that were on the agreement that was withdrawn are still going to be there.
Yeah,
Right.
definitely, there's no question that the disclosure of the commission from the buyer's agent to the buyer is going to be required. So that, like I said, you might as well start getting used to it and doing it now. And you can do it either by giving them a copy of the public MLS if it has that information in it, or you can just give them an email or whatever, which discloses it. But that's definitely coming down the road. And June Barlow and Legal's opinion is, yeah, you might as well get used to doing it because it's definitely coming. Yeah. So
Thanks.
on the listing, on the new revised listing agreement, there's a number of changes. The first one you can see on the right is under coming soon. Under coming soon, the days on, there's just a notification that if you're using coming soon, that as the listing broker, you should discuss with the seller what that means as far as days in the market, because every MLS kind of handles it differently. So that's not really the major change, but I was just pointing it out. The major change is in paragraph 10 on your left here, where it says buyer supplemental offer letters. We've all heard probably more than we care to hear about the love letters now from the buyers and the potential problems with those, having information in them that may be discriminatory that the sellers can't use in deciding whether to accept a property. So, I was a broker for many years, and we use those letters all the time. And we would say, it's a lovely family with 4 children, blah, 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 blah. Well, now, with fair housing and much more strict, you can't discriminate against a family versus a single person, et cetera, et cetera. So there's nothing illegal about giving such a letter, but the seller has to be warned that they're not to use any discriminatory material that's in those letters in determining which offer to take. So the best time to discuss that with the seller is not when an offer comes in, but at the time you take the listing. So paragraph 10C has been added to have 2 options for a seller. The first option, which is the default under 10C2, says the seller instructs the broker not to present the buyer letters, whether submitted with an offer or separately. And then C2B says the seller instructs the broker to present the letters. And then if they check B, it says broker advises seller that buyer letters may contain information about protected classes or characteristics, and such information should not be used in the seller's decision of whether to accept it, or reject, or counter an offer. If seller relies on buyer's letters, seller's acting against advice of broker and should seek the advice of counsel, blah, 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 blah. So that's now built into the listing. So you need to have that discussion with the seller up front, so when an offer comes in, whether you're going to deliver that letter to the seller or not. And if you don't, then you can put a statement if you want to in the MLS agent mark saying any letters from the buyer will not be submitted to the seller. So if they still submit it, they're free to do so. It's not illegal. You just have the instruction from the seller up front not to submit those letters to the seller, or you have an instruction to submit them. So that's pretty much the way it's being handled by CAR, which I think is a good idea, doing it up front, so you don't have to worry about it when an offer comes in. The other change in paragraph 10 is 10E, because the natural hazard disclosure report is even more important now than it was before. It always was really important, but now you got to determine whether the property is in a high or very high fire severity zone. There's a statement in E that seller agrees within 5 days of the beginning date of the agreement to order, and when required by the service provider, to pay for a natural hazard disclosure report. You want to get that done up front, and you want the seller to pay for it. And then there's other options there too. If you're going to get it up front, if the seller is going to get a pest control or a property inspection or whatever. But the main one right now that you want to get up front is the natural hazard disclosure statement, because that's the one that you're going to need right up front. So that's the other change. And then on the right side, which is the next page, there's just a change under paragraph 15, talking about tenant occupied properties, that the tenant would have to approve any kind of a key safe on the property. So let me see if I can scroll down. Any questions on the changes to the listing before I go to the lease listing agreement? No, everybody good? So on the lease listing agreement, there were some changes made there, and the main change on that, there's a little change under paragraph F on page 1, which it was a little unclear how the cooperating broker was being paid, and this just kind of sets forth how that's being done. And on the right side of the page here, you'll see that there's a question about whether the premises are separately gas metered or electric metered, whether there's been a death on the premises. But the real main change to the form is here on the left under paragraph 14F, where it says termination of agency relationship. I'm sure that any of you have done leases before. You'll be in a lease, you'll do a lease, and then 6 months later, the landlord calls you up and says, the tenant hasn't paid their rent. You need to help me out. You need to solve this problem. You're my agent, right? Well, that's not really the way it works. When you do a lease, your agency is done when the lease is consummated, unless you're a property manager. If you're a property manager, it's a different story. But if you're not a property manager, you're done with it, and it's not your problem 6 months down the road if somebody breaches. So paragraph 14F was added. It says termination of agency relationships. Owner acknowledges and agrees that unless the owner and broker enter into a separate property management agreement, the broker will not represent the owner in any manner regarding the management of the premises. Owner further agrees that the representation duties of an agency relationship with broker terminates at the earlier of the following, either when the lease is entered into, or when the tenant occupies the property, or when the keys are delivered, or the walk-in, walk-out, or whatever. So that is, I think, a really good addition to put the landlord on notice that, hey, we don't represent you for the entire year unless we're a property manager. We're done. And if you had a problem, you need to check with your own attorney or whatever once the deal is going forward. Any questions on that form? No. Okay, so I'm going to go to the next one, which is the cooperating broker compensation agreement. It's all in red, but don't worry about that. That they just reorganized. CIR just reorganized it. The only real change here is on the item 8 and on the next page down here on the left. If the commission is being reduced, if the listing agent and the buyer's agent, if the listing agent and the buyer's agent decide to reduce the commission voluntarily, then the manager of the buyer's agent has to sign. The old form didn't have a place for the manager to sign, which I don't know how that ever slipped through, but it's now been added. So there's a place for both the listing agent manager or broker and the buyer's agent manager or broker to sign, because if the commission's being reduced, the agent doesn't have a right to just agree to a reduction in commission. It's a broker commission. The broker also has to agree. So that's why if you look at the very bottom here, this has now been added for the buyer's broker to sign. Any questions on that? Okay, on the right side, referral fee agreement. The change here, this has been around for a long time, referral fee, but it never, believe it or not, it never really said exactly how the time frame runs for the payment. So it previously it just said that if I give you a referral and there's a sale within 12 months, I get paid, right? But it didn't really say what a sale meant. It didn't say whether, does that mean it has to be enter escrow or close escrow? And so that was always a little nebulous. So it's been changed now to indicate that whatever the time frame is, if it's 12 months, it's not 12 months from the referral agreement to close, it's 12 months until they enter a contract. So if they enter into a contract within the 12 months, regardless of when it closes, you get paid your referral fee. It's just like a listing agreement. When you take a listing agreement, if the seller enters into a deal within the term of the listing, it doesn't make any difference when it closes, you still get paid. Well, it's the same thing with a referral fee. If you enter into an agreement for referral and the person enters the contract within the year and it closes at any point, you're entitled to referral fee. So that was the only real change on that form. Now we have the property images agreement. The only change on the property images agreement is down under drone usage. Drones are more popular now for taking aerial pictures, etc. So there's a statement in there about drone usage and kind of a hold harmless on that. That's the only change there. And then on the right, you'll see the statewide buyer and seller advisory. The statewide buyer and seller advisory has gotten so long that we might as well put it in hardcover or hardback. It's just, I don't know, it's 16 pages now or something. But what the committee did is, and I'm going to go to the next page, because there's so much in there. We at the top here, we've always had this in the last few years where it's like divided into sections to make it easier. But now there's actually a table of contents to make it easier for you because it's so long. So let's say you want to know about geological hazards. it's all alphabetical. You go to geological hazards, you can see it's on page 21. So it's much easier to find stuff. And I think that's a big improvement, because with 16 pages, if you're looking for something, you may have to search through all 16 pages. This way you just go to the index or the table of contents. So there's a couple other changes here. The fire hardening has been added in here, of course, into the statewide buyer, even though there's a separate form for that. And then also there's been they've added in wildlife, because there's so much wildlife now in California, a little disclosure about that. And for the coastal areas, there's a sea level rise coastal property disclosure now. So those are the main changes to the various forms. And with that, if I can, I'm going to stop screen sharing. And I'm back. Go ahead, Rich.
Yeah, Jeff, going back to the PIA, the Property Images Agreement, if you would go over how important it is to get a property image agreement when you're using outside photographers.
Yeah, I mean, sometimes the photographer will have their own agreement, but if they don't, you want to use this form because you need to get either a license to use it or outright ownership of it. If you don't do that, the photographer owns that. And if you start using it, you may have a copyright problem or a problem with the photographer going after you for royalties. So the importance of the form is it gives you a license to use it. It explains in black and white what you can use it for or not use it for, or you're just outright buying the pictures and then you have the right to use it. So yeah, it's a really important form if you're having a third-party photographer do your photographing for you and they don't have their own agreement. If they have their own agreement, it may be fine, but you'd have to read it and make sure it's, complies. The CAR one obviously was designed to give the most protection to the brokerage and the agent as possible. So I would recommend trying to use that if you can.
Yes, because you have to have the rights to use that photo
Right.
Onto the MLS, which that never goes away. We can't get rid of those photos. So, that's really important.
They're like some bad, environmental hazard you could never get rid of. It's there forever, it seems like. And
Right.
it seems like we have more and more problems with that. More and more people complaining about you have to take the photos down because of privacy, and you have to tell them you can't take them down once they're there. It's sometimes you can do something, sometimes you can't. Once they get to the internet and once they get to third-party providers, aggregators, you don't have the ability to do anything. And that's stated up front in the listing agreement, but still they don't read it half the time, and then they get all upset when they can't get the stuff down. You can only do what you can do. But Rich is right. You want to have that agreement with the photographer at the very least.
And the other thing I wanted you to talk about that came from Friday's call with other brokers is agents handling lease listings. Supposedly there are testers out there who are calling and trying to see if there are restrictions to renting to certain groups.
Yeah.
And it's really important not to fall for this.
Yeah, that's been around for a long time, actually. That Long Island study they did last year or whatever showed some really horrible practices by agents in discriminating. So there are testers out there. If you get a call from somebody, and the answer of no is not a good answer usually. Sometimes you get a call, they'll say, will you take an animal if it's a support animal? And you say, no, the landlord doesn't want any pets. That's the wrong answer. That's a violation of fair housing. So you need to be, really careful that you're not, doing something that you put your foot in it. And there are definitely testers out there from fair housing that will try to trick you into saying the wrong thing. And the next thing you know is you get a fair housing complaint, and those are not pretty. So you need to be very careful on that and just be aware that when you get a call like that, don't make any, statements that can get you into a bad, and they used to do it with support animals and service animals, but they'll try it with anything,
Well, and remember that I think it was January of 2020, Section 8, a landlord cannot discriminate against Section 8 tenants.
Yeah, that's another one. If they call up and say, will your landlord take a Section 8, don't say no. You just say, if you have it, go ahead and submit. Now, if they're a tester, they're going to go away and you're not going to have to deal with it. But just don't say no. Just say, go submit, and the landlord will make a decision You know, at that point, don't say no. The word no probably shouldn't be in your vocabulary. I mean, unless it's something, you know, it's obviously ridiculous, that's not protected.
So it's, a question on the chat in relation to that from Alan. Can an agent ask for a photo or maybe a photo ID of a prospective tenant before showing for security reasons?
Well, it's a good question. The problem with asking for a photo, you can do it. The problem with asking for a photo is if the photo happens to indicate this person is a member of a protected class, and then this landlord doesn't lease to them, you run the risk that that's going to be used against you. So that's potentially a problem. But is it illegal to ask for a photo? No, it's not illegal. I mean, it's a form of identification, but potentially it places you in a position of, you know, having to defend your actions because, oh, I gave you this photo. Once you saw my picture, you won't rent to me. And by the way, landlord tenant stuff, please, as agents, don't give legal advice to the tenants or the landlords, anything like that. Just have them call a landlord tenant attorney. And I've given the names to, Rich has the names of several that I've given to him, SII Real Estate Services and the law offices Dennis Block that do landlord tenant. Our office doesn't do landlord tenant, but there are companies, firms out there that do landlord tenant. And don't start giving advice to the landlords and tenants on this, on the eviction moratorium, anything like that. It's an area that's constantly changing, completely confusing. And as soon as you step into it, you've stepped into it. You just need to step back and let them get their information from their own real estate or landlord tenant attorney. I see Rich rolling his eyes, so he's dealt with it. He's either rolling his eyes or he's having a seizure. I wasn't sure which one it was. We'll hope it was rolling his eyes. Yeah. Okay.
One more question over here, Shuku.
Regarding the buyer, inform the buyer regarding our commission. The MLS is not good enough. We have to fill out the forms or send the MLS that is showing how much the buyer agent get a commission is going to be good enough.
I heard the question. The question was, is the MLS printout good enough to give to the buyer to point out the commission that the buyer's agent is receiving? If the MLS has that information in the public record and it has the commission there, I think giving that is basically a disclosure. I suppose a buyer could argue, well, I didn't really look at it, but the information is there. So you could give the public remarks section if it has the commission in it.
Okay.
So let me switch gears. Manny, how are we doing on time?
5 minutes.
5 minutes or 50 minutes?
Yeah, 5.0.
5 minutes or 5 hours?
Yeah, well.
5 hours.
Whatever makes
Okay.
you happy, 5 minutes.
So let me just switch over to the RPA for a second, the residential purchase agreement. It's coming out in December, the second week of December. I already mentioned there's going to be class. There's an August 25th class on it that you can sign up for. We're going to set up some class for the Keller Williams people that we represent to do that as well. We might try to set it up. Maybe we'll do it twice if we can get a number of offices. Maybe I'll do it once in September and once in November or something, so that I'm doing it early on, so you can kind of get a gist of it, and then also doing it, right before it comes out, so you refresh your memory. But just as a very brief summary to a 3.5 hour class, because many won't let me go 3.5 hours apparently. The nothing in the new form. The new form looks completely different. I mean, it's unrecognizable from the old form, but it doesn't change really in any way the way you buyers or sellers do business. And what I mean by that is, if some of you have been around a while, you can remember when we changed from passive to active removal of contingencies, or when we removed the structural pest control from the contract, and those created a big concern and changed the way business was done. Nothing in this new revised form really is going to change the way you do business. The handling of the contingencies is the same. The handling of the buyer notice to perform and demand to close escrow is the same. So doing business is the same, but you're going to have to get used to the form being in a different format. And the format now is going to have everything uploaded or front loaded in the first 3 pages of the new form. You're going to have all the timeframes and all the fill in the blank stuff. So instead of it being spread all over the place, like the loan contingency on one page and the appraisal on another page or whatever, throughout the contract, everything's going to be on the first 3 pages. So you can look at the contract immediately and see what's going on with the timeframes and the contingencies, et cetera, et cetera. And then once you get past page 3, the rest of the form refers back to those 3 pages, and there's language regarding the loan, the appraisal, et cetera, et cetera. Certain things now are clear. There's a lot of clarifications in this contract. There's a whole paragraph on counting days. People get all confused about when you give a notice to perform, what's the first day, when does it end? There's a whole, I would say, 2-inch paragraph, which gives an example of counting days, which is really, really clear. The representative capacity form is built into the contract now, so you don't need a separate representative capacity form if someone's signing as representative capacity, as long as you fill it out properly in the offer. And there's a bunch of other good clarifications. Personal property, there's a whole list now of items that you can check, like things like smart home additions like doorbells, mirrors in the bathroom, all the kinds of things that always seem to fall between the cracks that created problems between a buyer and seller. A lot of those now are laid out, so you can see exactly what's included and what's not included. So I think you'll like it. And that's just a brief description. And again, August 25th for the class, but we're going to set something up for Keller Williams. With that, I'm just going to real quickly mention that one of the problems we're having now is that with third parties like Zillow and some of the other companies out there that don't use CAR forms, you need to be careful if you have a buyer who gets a Zillow or a Rex or one of those forms back. Those are not standard forms. They're going to ask you if they're okay. You can't give them legal advice. You should be advising them, hey, these contracts have language in there that are slanted towards the seller, and you need to have your own real estate attorney look at it and okay it. Zillow had probably the worst form, although a little bit has been, they had something in their thing that they didn't have to give a TDS. Well, CAR got in touch with legal at Zillow, and they've changed their tune on that. But there's still language in there. There's release language in there that shouldn't be there. And there's a bunch of other stuff. So anytime you're dealing with a non-standardized form, not a CAR form, you need to have like a standard language, like an email that you're sending to the buyer saying, this is a non-standardized form. You need to, I suggest that you have this checked by your own legal counsel to make sure that you're protected. So with that, I think I've kind of covered my 5 minutes. If there's any other questions, be happy to answer them. Otherwise, I'll let you continue on with your meeting. Anything else?
Thanks, Jeff. Rich, do you see anything else that need to address?
No, he covered everything that I wanted to bring up.
That's all I can ask for. Okay, guys, have a good rest of the evening, good rest of the week, etc. And I'll talk to you all soon.
Jeff, thanks for your time. We're going to coordinate a whole class for September for all the offices. So stay tuned for that, everybody. And Rich, if you see anything on the chat that you can address with the agents, that would be great. Jeff, thanks again for your time.
Thank you. Talk to you later.
Yeah, thanks as always. Good stuff, good content. Rich was on the panel. Let's jump to a few fast topics. But before that, a shout out to this superhero, go by Joseph. People call him Joe. Joe McDaniel. Joe, are you on the line? On the Zoom?
I am, Manny. How's it going?
Joe, good to see you.
Yeah, good to see everyone.
Yeah, Joseph is our lead TC with Pacific TC, and just wanted to bring you on the call for a minute, just to first of all to give you a shout out personally, from my experience with my transactions with you, and I know that we're getting more and more amazing positive feedback. So welcome, thank you. You have some fans in the crowd. Give us some. What's a good word, Joe?
What was we're getting busy. If anyone has ever in need of TC assistance, I'm your guy. Manny's got my contact details up here. If you have questions, even just general questions, and you don't need assistance, just shoot me an email and I'll do my best to get back to you and give you some input.
And I'm going to write down his information on the chat as well. And you've been a TC for how many years now?
I'm going on 6 years as a TC, and I was an escrow for a little over 3 years prior to that. So I've been in the real estate industry for God, I was in my maybe 20 years old when I started. I'm pushing 30 now. So it's been a while.
Yeah, so it's a killer combo. When I first met you, ESCO person that becomes a TC. It's best of all worlds, right?
Exactly.
Yeah.
Manny,
but
can
once
I
it-
say a couple of things?
Yeah, go for it.
Yeah, I just want to, Joe, I just want to sing your praises. If you guys are on here and you've used Joe before, send some little messages here in the chat so we can know, what you guys say. I've heard nothing but good feedback about you. Many of our leadership as well, owners are using you and sing your praises. And that's something that's a really high bar to reach. So I just want to
Okay.
say congrats. We're so excited to be in partnership with you. If you guys are struggling at all with your TC services, with getting disclosures in on time, with getting things uploaded into Command correctly and getting paid on time, Joe is your guy. Call him, right?
Thank you. Thank you for that.
Awesome. Joe covers both residential and commercial transactions. They can do everything. Leases and just everything from A to Z. So I put the info in the chat. And you can also go to the website itself, pacificctc.com, and go see the price over there. It's very competitive as well. I don't want to say it's cheap, they're cheaper than others because I don't know the word cheap, but there's definitely a modification for KW. So just go online, pacificctc.com, and look it up. It's the right thing. So Joe, thanks for your time, man.
Yeah. Thank you so much. Have a good one, everyone.
Appreciate you. What do we have today? Quick overview. We are here. MRA class with Samuel today over Zoom, and we have Jessica. Stephanie, is this in person in Calabasas?
Which one? The Ignite?
The home warranty?
The home warranty is in person and Zoom session in the Calabasas office, yes.
Got it. That's today at 3 o'clock. And tomorrow we have a mastermind with Rosenberg out of the Calabasas office, Wendy Rizzotto, the South Bay office, and Jane Castillo out of the LA Harbor office. I'm gonna be, where I'm gonna be, Kim? I'm gonna be here. Yeah, I think I'm gonna be physically here in West Side, and we'll some of them gonna be over Zoom or in person in their sessions. But usually our TLs host in person, so we will have that session live at 2 p.m. Looking forward to that. So we're gonna chat about buyers, how to work with buyers, build a pipeline, negotiation techniques, how to present an offer, etc. Those guys are rocking it for a very long time. So that's that. Stephanie, Holly, something's on fire.
Ignite! Woo! I know everyone's excited about it. Where's my Calabasas? Woo! Stephanie, do you want to talk about Ignite this weekend? There we go. There they are. They're awake. Yeah, so we have Ignite this weekend. If you guys can see, we have awesome trainers set for you. This is jam-packed full of content. Rather than spreading it out over 12 weeks, we are giving you everything packed into one session. So come, have your coffee, have your lunch ready by your computer. Thank you all to your trainers. And anything more to say about it, Stephanie?
Yeah, I'm definitely going to be live in the Calabasas office as well. So if anybody wants, even though the facilitators and instructors are on, on Zoom, right? We'll still be in here. So if anybody wants to be live, they're more than welcome to come to the Calabasas office. Again, it starts right at 9 and jam-packed marathon till 3.
Saturday at 9, that's the marathon. Sonia, by the way, is doing great sessions separately throughout the week. I think 2 or 3 days a week if you're in the PC program. So that's kind of more in depth for every session. But this Saturday is the marathon back to back. I'm going to open up. Looking forward to it. Next week, Wednesday night, right? We have a little party.
Yes, we do. So we have the updated flyer for you guys that's posted around the office and sent out at Evite, but we are having our grand opening. If you guys didn't know, we are just now opening our offices. So, but super excited. We're gonna have an art exhibit. We'll have music, we have apps, we have drinks, the whole bit. We're gonna have a ribbon cutting, which will happen at 6:30. But doors open at 6, and then if you know of anybody extraordinary talent that's out there that you want to bring in and show off our office to, right? And the great culture and atmosphere, please bring them by. But would love for all of you to be here. And for those of you that haven't seen the office yet, please come in. It's going to be a great night and a way for all of us to get together and hang out with our masks on.
Yep, next week.
But anyway, super excited.
Thanks, Stephanie. Wednesday night, 6 to 8. It's like an open house. So if you haven't seen the office, and following that, we are going to have at some point in September, we're going to celebrate the West Side office. We'll do the same thing over here, and the South Bay office as well. And then Coastal with the New Pacific escrow location over there as well. So that's next week. Mega Camp, I know that they opened the main event in Austin, Texas got canceled because Austin reversed orders over there due to increase in COVID cases. So the physical event got canceled. They're still going to have the whole full-on virtual experience. The Vegas one is still happening because Vegas is a different universe. And I'm not sure what's the status with the tickets, etc. If you are interested, reach out to us, the team leaders, and we're going to see if there's more tickets available or how to get tickets to join us. We're going to be there. It's more, I think, the 24th, 24th. I mean, Tuesday of that week, Tuesday, Wednesday. And that's the agent mega camp. And every office, by the way, we are going to host a mega camp party, like a watch party for 2 days, Tuesday and Wednesday of that week. Every day we're going to have food sponsors, and it's like a few hours, like the first half of the day event ish, because it starts really early in Texas time, Central time. So more about that soon. Stephanie?
All right, we have, we're a little delayed over here, sorry. So SRAR has their charity golf classic that's happening in the end of this month, August 30th. So if anybody wants to put some foursomes together, you want to make sure that I'm on your team. I'm just kidding. So, but anyway, $175 per golfer. They have, it's just a great way to get out there. And truly, if anybody wants to put a foursome together, I'll do it. I would love to. Anyway, and then Pacific Coastline Escrow is one of the sponsors as well. So we just want to get out there and support the best that we can. The golf tournament, SRAR, and the donation to what? The SRAR Charitable Foundation.
Yeah, so if you're a golfer, reach out and subscribe. Join us for that event.
You don't have to be you don't have to be a golfer. They have packages that that you can just attend and get the meal. So it's called a Mulligan Package, I think. Yeah. So $25. So don't have to golf. Just go out and have fun.
And that's why both Rich and myself are going. That's exactly the reason. Thanks for pointing out, Rich. See you there. Yeah, don't forget the football. And Christine Wheeler, congrats. Winning that iPad, right? For the Bold. We have some pretty awesome teams for Bold, by the way. So I don't know if you can still join. We already 2 sessions in and tons of listings taken and good stuff happening. But she is a iPad winner and a really awesome agent. So congrats, Christine.
Congrats, Christine. Woohoo. She's one of the captains too. That's awesome.
West Side we had our picnic, family picnic over here at the local park nearby. That was awesome. Thanks everybody for joining. That was great to see everybody. Give a shout out the last in-person only meeting. So fun stuff. Amazing office, amazing people. And the next event, I think we have a hike coming up in PV area in something in Long Beach. So stay tuned. Anything else? Holly, Rich, Stephanie?
I don't think so.
Okay, everybody. Well, thank you for joining us. Have a productive, purposeful day, and stay healthy and peace, everybody. See you soon.
Bye, everyone.